As I faced east for the final time, I saw my skin as green, and a darker green around me. And when I sat before the mirror, I saw like a curved letter T of green. Then I saw that darker green filled the mirror, and lighter green was about. There was something in the west, and it moved a bit to the north, and then I didn't notice it. And in the mirror became like a world. And it was with pink continents. I felt moving upon me, preceding the analgesic shudders. And finally, as I feel very warm and content, I've came out of somewhere that was pink and blue, very calming colors of each. There's a distinction drawn between bibliography and source books that are recommended to have on hand for your continual study and practice. And some of these individuals have been mentioned before in the book in quite a clear and memorable way. Of course, it closes in talking about the books that are available from the Ordo Templi Astartes and the Church of Hermetic Sciences. Sort of the same, but technically different, right? And I don't see any reference to Hallahel, the 73rd goetic spirit, which kind of overlaps with Baal. And you can say it kind of closes the circuit, like, different symbols and names and verses and stuff will speak to us differently at different times. I, for one, think of how, when I was going over this, there was a different effect for each side. 1 to 72 with Goetia and 72 to 1. And it wasn't just in going through it in a different order, because I made sure to vocalize through a series, and then it's like, it was a bit of I thought it best to try a different order. It definitely seems stronger with the Goetia reference. And some say that these symbols are until you get your own, but in a way, there's a universal symbol and there's personal symbols for some of this stuff. And I've shared some of the personal symbols that have occurred with known meaning in my experiences. And sometimes they really are just for a person, they aren't to be put out there. But sometimes, you gotta be honest about your claims about that sort of stuff. If you're not directed per se, then you're not, shouldn't claim that that's the sort of thing. Now, if you think that it may be of use to others, okay. And me, myself, I have generally just got symbols kind of like the symbol that is the typical symbol. As you may have seen in my painting, Pilgrimage of the Jinn, or Tanotor, or whatever other name I may have called it, or someone else may have called it. Those are pretty much the same as one's going to find. Now, you don't find all the variations of what is said about the goetic entities and stuff, but maybe when I do that, it becomes a bit too complex for people, or it seems contradictory, and it's like, well, the tradition is sort of contradictory. So this book makes it, such that people can still practice it a bit. And when I read a book or talk about a book or work with a book, it doesn't mean I necessarily agree with everything or I use it in their way, but I put myself in that mythological framework where I can just reference it as some sort of cosmological thing and think about it subjectively and try to have my experience. It's not that I'm going to worship every entity in the book or anything. And it doesn't mean that what shows up is what's necessarily called, but you open the way. You open the way on each side. They're talking about a balance. You open the way, and stuff happens psychologically and otherwise. And perhaps people from different generations would write a book like this differently. But it's honestly about as good as it gets.